Three heads, old young. Two heads, one tail, young yin. Three tails, old yin. Two heads, one tail, young yin. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. The first or bottom or inner trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as solid, broken, broken. This is the trigram Zen Thunder. Thunder is shock, upheaval, and the spark of the new. In old Chinese belief, thunder slept in the earth over winter and erupted from it in spring, awakening living things into new growth. Thunder is our basic drive for renewal. He inspires initiative and decisive action. He is the stimulus that sets things in motion. He is the eldest son in the trigram family, the first connection of heaven, potential, with earth, realization. Yang makes itself known here, emerging into the field and beginning to grow. Thunder belongs to the east and to spring. The top or outer trigram will be read as broken, solid, broken. This is Kan water. Kan is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, which is fire and light, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. This is danger, exposure, and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. Kan water above Zen thunder gives us the hexagram number 3. Once our changing lines 1 and 3 transform from their old versions to their young opposites, old yang will become young yin, and old yin will become young yang, which will give us a bottom or inner trigram for our supporting hexagram of broken, broken, solid. This is Gen Mountain. The mountain is still. It is a limit where you must stop. Gen brings each cycle to an end, defining a space where we can recognize, assimilate, and complete our experience. He creates a personal still center amid change, where we can retreat for perspective and a firm foundation for new growth. He is well-grounded, confident, and of independent spirit. He is still and knows. Mountain is the youngest sun, child of maturity. In the cycle of directions and seasons, he is the northeast, late winter, approaching spring, the pivot between cycles. Con water above Gen Mountain give us the supporting hexagram of 39. We will get the titles to our hexagrams from I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's nice and alchemical-like. Hexagram number 3, our primary hexagram, he calls difficulty. Beginning of the process of fostering the strength of primal energy, the difficult process of breaking out of acquired temporal conditioning and bringing the primordial to the fore, the process known as advancing the yang fire. Sounds about right. And our supporting hexagram, 39, puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 39 is called halting or trouble, preserving the primordial in the midst of the temporal. We will start by reading from Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future, which is a nice introductory I Ching commentary. Hexagram number 3, our primary hexagram, she calls sprouting. Key questions. What is beginning to grow? It's actually just what is beginning. Where is the growing center, and where can you find help for it? Oracle. Sprouting, from the source, creating success, constancy bears fruit. Don't use this to have a direction to go, fruitful to establish feudal lords. Sprouting is the very beginning, a growing center, putting out roots into the unknown and breaking through the hard soil. Inner life reaches out into the world, experiencing resistance for the first time. The creative drive of heaven and earth joins together and grows. It's tiny, scarcely born, but burgeoning with life and a great desire to attain full growth. It's far too early yet to narrow all the possibilities down to a single destination. Just as a plant sends out roots in all directions, a new ruler needs to set up a network of feudal lords. These are an image for helpers, human or otherwise, everything that brings you support and expands your sphere of awareness and influence. In exploring all possibilities, you enrich and strengthen the center as growth begins. Image, clouds, thunder, sprouting. A noble one weaves warp and weft. At the beginning, clouds and thunder swirl together in a creative ferment. The creative impulse rises like thunder and flows out into the world's confusion. The word for warp, threads, also means a canonical text and a channel where energy flows. These are the first principles. You can weave all the colors of experience into the structure they provide, translating creative chaos into a creative order. Sequence. There is heaven and earth, and so the 10,000 things are born. Overflowing the space between heaven and earth, the 10,000 things. And so sprouting follows. Sprouting means filling to overflowing. Sprouting means the beginning of things' birth. The sequence of the hexagrams is born here, from heaven and earth, hexagrams 1 and 2. This is a time of intense, overwhelming creativity. Pair. Sprouting forms a pair with hexagram 4, not knowing. Sprouting, seeing, and not letting go your dwelling place. Not knowing, disordered and also clear. You are like a new king, surveying the realm without leaving his home at its center, or you are like an infant who contemplates the world from the security of her cradle. Staying centered, you always know where you are. There will be time later to discover how much you don't know. And our supporting hexagram 39, Halting or Trouble, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Hilary Barrett calls limping. Key questions. Where can you find help? How could you see the obstacles differently? Can you imagine going a different way? Oracle. Limping, fruitful in the southwest, not fruitful in the northeast. Fruitful to see great people, constancy, good fortune. When life has become an uphill struggle, it's wise to fall back to the southwest. The southwest represents a realm of friendly allies and sun-warmed fields. The northeast is dark and mountainous, the way of calling and adventure. So this is a time to take a step back from the struggle and connect with people more than with ideals. Even if the responsibility is yours alone, the work need not be. Really facing a problem means being prepared to tackle it in a different way, not just trudging doggedly onwards until the path peters out beneath your feet. Seeing great people helps you to keep traveling towards your long-term vision despite the obstacles and course corrections. You may literally find a great person with the experience and wisdom to reorient you. You may be guided by an inner vision of human potential. You, the great, the hero who conquered the floods, toiled for years to build dikes and dredge rivers and was left with a limp. But he succeeded in the end because of what he did differently, enlisting the help of people and spirits and honoring the flow of the water. Image. Above the mountain, there is water, limping. A noble one turns himself around to renew his character. The path ahead is hard and dangerous, and it is time to find another way. The clouds that rise above the mountain become the stream flowing down it. It changes course lightly and easily, naturally finding a path of least resistance, always in motion. Embodying the qualities of mountain and stream, the noble one will join the firmness of his inner resolve with fluid commitment, renewing his strength of character by turning his whole self around. Sequence. From hexagram 38, opposition. Turning away naturally means hardship, and so limping follows. When you are alienated from others, life is hard. Nothing is provided for you. Everything comes only by your own effort. You struggle, and it is time to look southwest. Pair. Limping forms a pair with release, hexagram 40. Release means letting things take their time. Limping means hardship. Release is a time of flow. This is a time of struggle. Release is free to follow a chosen path. Limping is unavoidably handicapped and obstructed. And yet, Limping is also the time for turning yourself around and finding another way, and that contains the potential for release. We'll now get back to our primary hexagram 3 and read our changing lines 1 and 3, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused point of the reading. They each have their own general context. Changing line 1 has the general context, inklings, just beginning to sense what could be involved or needed. Changing line 3 has the general context, an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. I forgot to mention, when we approach the I Ching to consult the oracle, the question we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Changing line 1, encircled by stones, fruitful to settle with constancy, fruitful to establish feudal lords. At the very beginning, you're hemmed in by obstacles all around you. You can't forge ahead as directly as you would like, yet you still want to come into harmony with your environment. So instead of feeling trapped here, put down roots and make yourself at home. Reach out, expand your awareness beyond the obstacles, and make connections that can help you. And changing line 3 of primary hexagrams, number 3, sprouting. Pursuing a stag with no forester, simply entering into the center of the forest. A noble one reads the subtle signs and sets this aside. Going on, shame. You're chasing after your desires with no guide, perhaps so entranced by anticipation that you forget where you are now. Namely, on the verge of getting humiliatingly lost. Instead of expanding your awareness from the center, you're letting your desires get ahead of you and plunging into the unknown. There's still time to recognize where this is leading you and desist. If you're in this for the long term, there's no need for such haste. Next, we will turn to I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. Our primary hexagram, number 3, in the text section. Difficulty. In difficulty, creativity and development are effective if correct. Do not use. There is a place to go. It is beneficial to set up a ruler. Explanation. Difficulty means having trouble progressing. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is the pitfall of water, below the movement of thunder. Acting in danger, action in danger cannot easily get out of danger, so it is called difficulty. This hexagram represents starting the advancement of yang. It follows on the hexagram heaven. Heaven is the quality of strength. Advancement of yang is advancement of that strength. It is precisely because of not being strong that one promotes strength. The quality of strength is primordial, real yang, the original true energy. When this energy mixes with acquired conditioning, it is concealed. But even though it is not manifest, it never completely disappears. Sometimes it does appear. But people are confused by things of the world, enveloped in wandering thoughts, so they miss it even when it is right there, unwilling to recognize reality. When this primal energy appears, this is what is called the living midnight in our bodies. At this time, we are merged in the qualities of heaven and earth, joined with the light of sun and moon, harmonized with the order of the 4 seasons. This is the gate of yin and yang. The door of life and death, the wellspring of essence and life, the root of strength and submission, the crucible for creating life, the alchemical furnace. The original energy of primordial true yang is herein. Those who know it diligently cultivate it, restoring the primordial within the temporal. From vagueness it becomes clear. From one yang it gradually grows, until it inevitably reaches the pure completeness of 6 yangs. This means that in difficulty, too, there is a path of creativity and development. However, people are restricted by temperament, influenced by accumulated habit. The primal energy of true yang is deeply buried. Even though there be a time of restoration, the true sane energy is weak and aberrated energy is strong. As long as the true does not prevail over the false, it cannot immediately expand and rise. So it is a matter of carefully containing and securely storing it, preserving this living potential, not letting it be damaged by external influences, making it the basis of restoration. This is why the text says, effective if correct. And it also says, do not use. There is a place to go. Correctness is not vacant emptiness without action. Do not use does not mean there is absolutely nothing to do. But when you have done things by the human mentality for a long time, the mind of Tao is not manifest. Restoring the positive within negativity is action in danger. If you proceed recklessly, desirous of rapid progress, you will increase the danger. If you want to restore positivity, it is best to first correct the mind. When the text says it is beneficial to set up a ruler, this symbolizes correcting the mind. The ruler is the leader of a country. The mind is the leader of the body. Set up a ruler, and the difficulties of the nation can gradually be overcome. Rectify the mind, and the perils of the body can gradually be dissolved. Once the mind is right, the root is firm, and the original energy does not dissipate. Then one can advance the fire according to the time, gradually culling, gradually refining. Then what has been lost can be regained. What has gone can be restored. Benefit lies in correctness while in action. This action is not random action, but properly timed action. Then whatever is begun develops, and whatever develops bears fruit. Next, we will turn to our supporting hexagram 39, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence the direction of travel and underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Halting, trouble. When halted, the southwest is beneficial, not the northeast. It is profitable to see a great person. Innocence is auspicious. Explanation. Halting means forward progress is difficult. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is water, dangerous, and below is mountain, stopping. Stopping in the midst of danger, it is therefore called halting. This hexagram represents preserving the primordial in the midst of the temporal. It follows on the previous hexagram, people in the home. In people in the home, illumination is not used outwardly. It is the work of refining the self. Refining the self is only refining the acquired yin. From the time people lose the primordial and temporal conditioning takes charge, the human mind is perilous, like the 2 yins being outside 1 yang in water. The mind of Tao is faint, like the 1 yang fallen between 2 yins in water. With yang fallen into yin, the mind of Tao is burdened by the human mentality and cannot manifest actively. It is all the human mind that does things. This is the extreme of danger. But as long as there is danger, it is necessary to be able to stop in danger. If one can stop in danger, then the human mentality gradually evaporates and the mind of Tao gradually grows. It is possible thereby to deal with danger and to leave danger without being injured by the negative energy of acquired conditioning. The statement, When halted, the southwest is beneficial, not the northeast, is precisely the secret of dealing with danger and leaving danger. The southwest is the province of earth, the homeland of utter emptiness and complete stillness. Utter emptiness beckons fulfillment. When stillness is complete, then action goes into motion. The primordial energy comes from within empty nothingness. As the mind of Tao appears, the human mind naturally recedes. This is the place that gives life to the self, so it is called beneficial. The northeast is the direction of mountain, where yin energy has nearly stripped yang completely away. Yin energy stripping away yang, following its desires, the human mind takes charge of affairs, and the mind of Tao is on the verge of disappearance. This is the place that kills the self, so it is called not beneficial. It is beneficial to enliven the mind of Tao and withdraw the human mind. It is not beneficial to arouse the human mind and damage the mind of Tao. If you enliven the mind of Tao, then you can deal with danger. If you can withdraw the human mind, then you can get out of danger. So the fact that it is surely profitable to see a great person and innocence is auspicious is because a great person is one who has not lost the mind of an infant. The mind of an infant does not discriminate or cognize, has no greed or ambition. This is the mind of Tao. When one has the mind of Tao, one is a great person. Without the mind of Tao, one is a petty person. Getting rid of the human mentality is not possible without seeing the mind of Tao. Only when seeing the mind of Tao can one get rid of the human mind. So it is profitable to see a great person simply means it is beneficial to see the mind of Tao. Once one has seen the mind of Tao, false and true are distinguished. At peace, in accord, essence is stabilized and feelings forgotten. No longer seduced by the human mentality, by stillness one can control danger, and by action one can solve danger. Stillness and action are both functions of the mind of Tao. Meeting danger with rectitude, maintaining rectitude in the midst of danger, eventually one will surely get out of danger, resolve danger, and fulfill the great path, completing it auspiciously. We will turn back to our changing lines 1 and 3 of our primary hexagram number 3. And each of them have the general context of, well, changing line 1 has the general context of inklings, just beginning to sense what could be involved or needed. Changing line 3, the general context, an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. The changing lines put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements. They are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 1 of hexagram 3 difficulty. Not going anywhere, it is beneficial to abide in correctness. It is beneficial to set up a ruler. Explanation. Firm in the beginning of difficulty, the positive energy at the base, like the foundation of a house, it is beneficial to abide in correctness and make the basis firm. This is like the ruler of a nation. It is beneficial to set up the ruler and nurture the original energy. Changing line 3. Chasing deer without a guide, just going into the forest. The superior person, knowing the dangers, had better give up. To go would bring great regret. Explanation. Petty people without knowledge act arbitrarily, in ignorance, wrongly coveting the celestial treasure. They act dangerously on a dangerous basis. This is like chasing deer without a guide, just going into the forest. And it is no surprise. As for superior people who understand the Tao, They should know the dangers and had better give up and wait for the proper time. If you do not wait for the proper time and rush forward in hopes of speedy accomplishment, you will certainly regret having beckoned danger. This is rushing to seek solutions when in difficulty. We will also read from the commentary section each of our hexagrams. Number 3, difficulty. Water above, thunder below. Thunder in the clouds is held back. The superior person orders and arranges. Difficulty means being held back. The reason water on top of the hexagram is here referred to as clouds rather than water is that rain falls from clouds. When thunder rumbles in the clouds and there is already the sense of rain, but the rain has not yet begun to fall, just when yin and yang have intertwined and are about to bring to pass what has not yet been possible, this is the image of difficulty. What superior people see in this is that primordial celestial energy is trapped by the force of mundane conditioning, and though it occasionally becomes manifest, it is inhibited and cannot come forth freely. Without effort to foster the celestial and control the mundane, it is hard to gain access to this primal energy and easy to lose it, missing it even when it is right there. Therefore, based on its manifest action, the superior person orders and arranges the primordial celestial energy in the sense of cultivating and maintaining it. To order means to harmonize the celestial and the earthly. To arrange means to adjust their relative proportions. Order without proper arrangement cannot perfect anything. Knowledge of the ingredients without knowledge of the process cannot accomplish the Tao. At the point where one yang arises on the ground of water, the passage of contact of earth and heaven, the dividing bridge of life and death, the moment when both disaster and good fortune are possible, practitioners of Tao should quickly set to work, take command, carefully guard the budding awareness, and not let it be harmed by invasion of the force of mundanity. When you gather the celestial energy as it grows, working uninterruptedly, ordering and arranging, promoting the primal and minimizing the secondary, knowing when to stop at sufficiency, if you do not slip up, even though the celestial energy does not come through at first, eventually it will unfold and expand, like thunder rumbling in the clouds, sweet rain falling of itself. This is what is meant by the saying, after a long darkness, the light is brilliant. And halting or trouble, hexagram 39, our supporting hexagram, puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. In the commentary section for 39, halting, water above, mountain below. There is water atop a mountain, halting. Thus do superior people examine themselves and cultivate virtue. Halting means there is difficulty and one cannot proceed onward. Above is water, below is mountain. There is water atop a mountain. A mountain is high and is very earthy. Add water on top of that, and earthiness is strong while the celestial is weak. This is the image of halting. What superior people see in this is that when people are unable to make progress on the path of sages, it is because they are competitive and contentious, emotional and greedy, not knowing how to improve themselves and correct their errors. Therefore, superior people examine themselves and cultivate virtue. If one is incapable of self-examination, one will not have self-mastery and will be subject to manipulation. Every act, every step will entail danger and difficulty, will involve injury to life. Only by self-examination can one abandon the false and enter the real, not being deluded by externals. With every step one's feet then tread the real ground, and virtue can be cultivated. When virtue is cultivated, one's nature is stabilized and feelings are forgotten, so that one is unshakable and unwavering as a mountain, not halted by obstacles. One cannot be injured by difficulties and troubles. But the work of self-examination and cultivation of virtue requires clear knowledge of the image of the hexagram. The water is above, the mountain is below. The water being above means that the danger that causes halting is external, while the mountain being below means that developmental cultivation is internal. Seeing there is danger, if one can then use that danger to cultivate character, then even though the situation be dangerous, the mind is not in danger. Outwardly there is danger, but inwardly it is not dangerous. The danger lies elsewhere, while cultivation of virtue and character lies in oneself. Using virtue to ward off danger, danger dissolves. Using danger to cultivate character, virtuous action grows daily more lofty. So obstacles cannot faze one. Indeed, it is after being halted by obstacles that one can cultivate character and virtue. If students can recognize the reality of self-examination, there is no need to worry about halting, and no need to worry about inability to develop virtue. We will next turn to James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, which I've left links to in the description box below. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself, and he synthesized several I Ching commentaries into one helpful place. And you can download the whole thing as a PDF if you want, or read it from his site. He also puts quotes to things like the Kabbalah in it. He calls Hexagram 3 difficulty. Other titles might be difficulty at the beginning, the symbol of bursting, sprouting, hoarding, distress, organizational growth pains, difficult beginnings, growing pains, initial obstacles, initial hardship. Judgment leg. Difficulty indicates progress and success through firm correctness. Action should not be undertaken lightly, and it is wise to seek help. Wilhelm/Baines. Difficulty at the beginning. Works supreme success, furthering through perseverance. Nothing should be undertaken. It furthers one to appoint helpers. Blofeld. Difficulty followed by sublime success. Persistence in a righteous course brings reward, but do not seek some new goal or destination. It is highly advantageous to consolidate the present position. The fundamental idea of this hexagram is that of birth and growth amidst difficulty, as with a sprouting seed becoming a young plant and forcing its way through the earth. Our affairs, being still in their early stages, are vulnerable. We must not wander forth, but attend to them until they ripen. Then, with proper care, the seed will bring forth a splendid tree. The upper trigram, a pit, suggests a need for caution. But if we heed these omens, our success is assured. Ritzema/Karcher, this hexagram describes your situation in terms of beginning growth. It emphasizes that collecting potential in preparation for arduous labor is the adequate way to handle it. Slofnacy, hoarding, prime receipt, beneficial to determine, do not herewith have some place to go, beneficial to establish a lord. The image, leg. The image of clouds and thunder forms difficulty. The superior man, in accordance with this, adjusts his measures of government, as in sorting the threads of the warp and woof. Wilhelm/Bain's Clouds and Thunder, the image of difficulty at the beginning. Thus the superior man brings order out of confusion. Ritzema/Karcher, Clouds, Thunder, Sprouting. A Chunsu, or chief son or superior person, uses the canons to coordinate. Canons are standards, laws, regular, regulate, the 5 classics, the ideogram, warp threads in a loom. Commentary. Confucius/Legge, difficulty is experienced as heaven and earth begin their intercourse, but correct action succeeds in the face of danger. By the action of thunder and rain, which are the attributes of the lower and upper trigrams, all between heaven and earth is filled up. But the conditions of the time are irregular and obscure. Authority should be delegated, but the feeling that rest and peace have been secured should not be indulged in even then. Legge. The written character for difficulty is pictorial and shows a plant struggling with difficulty as it rises above the surface of the earth. This initial difficulty is a metaphor for how struggle is the condition of a state which is emerging from disorder after a revolution. The author saw his social and political world in great disorder and difficult to reform, yet he had faith in himself and the destiny of his house. Let there be prudence and caution, with unswerving adherence to the right. Let the government of the different states be entrusted to good and able men, then all will be well. According to the arrangement of the 8 trigrams, heaven and earth are the parents of the other 6, who are their children. The firstborn sun is the lower trigram of movement, and the second-born sun is the upper trigram of peril. McClatchy renders here, the figure of difficulty represents the hard and the soft beginning to have sexual intercourse, and bringing forth with suffering. The power to move in the lower trigram is likely to produce great effects. To do this in perilous and difficult circumstances, symbolized by the upper trigram, requires firmness and correctness. Good princes throughout the realm will help to remedy the political and social disorder of the times, but the supreme ruler should not trust his subordinates to the point of relaxing his vigilance. The lower trigram represents thunder, the upper represents rain clouds. The hexagram therefore places us in the atmosphere of a thunderstorm, a metaphor for the situation of a political state in difficulty. When the thunder has pealed and the clouds have discharged their burden of rain, the atmosphere is cleared and there is a feeling of relief. Anthony. This hexagram means that we have not yet found the correct path. It also means confusion, too many possibilities. Nothing is clear. This lack of clarity is the hindrance referred to in the first line of the hexagram. In the second line, the remedies that come forth are inappropriate. In the first stages of dealing with a problem, we are tempted to grasp at solutions, whereas we should wait until the proper actions become clear. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Under the conditions of difficulty, it is best to mark time while seeking assistance. The superior man uses careful analysis to separate order from confusion. Wilhelm's title for this hexagram is Difficulty at the Beginning. I prefer difficulty because it is a situation encountered at any phase of the work, not just the beginning. Difficulty is experienced because confusion and multiplicity prevail during the initial phase of any creative activity. Thoughts and feelings proliferate and threaten to overwhelm the mind with infinite complexity. The only way to proceed under such circumstances is to carefully sort out the components of the situation and arrange them in categories and in order of importance. To sort the threads of the warp and woof is to weave a tangled mess into a tapestry. The orderly sequence of the hexagrams gives us an image of what takes place under the hexagram of difficulty. When there were heaven and earth, then afterwards all things were produced. What fills up the space between heaven and earth are those individual things. Hence the dynamic and magnetic are followed by difficulty. Difficulty means filling up. Filling up is rendered as fullness in some translations. This is the exact meaning of the Gnostic term pleroma, or fullness, which Jung correlates with the collective unconscious or objective psyche. These are interior dimensions from which emanate the archetypal energies which we experience as instinctual drives and emotional complexes. This is the hyperspace from which the self, via the oracle, responds to our queries and directs the work. Thus we see that the third hexagram, following the creation of the cosmic pair of opposites in the first two figures, represents a dialectical progression. Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching some 600 years after the I Ching was committed to writing, describes this unfolding process. Out of Tao, one is born. Out of one, two. Out of two, three. Out of three, the created universe. The created universe carries the yin at its back and the yang in front. Through the union of the pervading principles, it reaches harmony. The identical idea is found in many traditions, giving it the status of an archetype within human consciousness. It is not necessary to be familiar with the technical terminology of Kabbalah to recognize that the same idea is being discussed in the following passage. A quote from D. Fortune in the Mystical Kabbalah. In Chokmah and Bina, we have the archetypal positive and negative, the primordial maleness and femaleness established while countenance beheld not countenance, and manifestation was incipient. It is between these two polarizing aspects of manifestation, the supernal father and the supernal mother, that the web of life is woven, souls going back and forth between them like a weaver's shuttle. In our individual lives, in our psychological rhythms, and in the history of the rise and fall of nations, we observe the same rhythmic periodicity. This idea has been stated very simply. A quote from W.B. Yeats in A Vision: all things are a single form which has divided and multiplied in time and space. And a quote from Black Elk: is not the sky a father and the earth a mother? And are not all living things with feet or wings or roots their children? And also with poetic complexity in Genesis: in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was a formless void. There was darkness over the deep, and God's spirit hovered over the water. God said, let the waters teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth within the vault of heaven. And so it was. God blessed them, saying, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the waters of the seas, and let the birds multiply upon the earth. There are some profound ideas in these images about the structure of human consciousness and the contents of the unconscious psyche. The basic idea is that of emanation, the creation of physical reality from a supreme principle in ordered hierarchies of increasing complexity. This concept is essential for a full understanding of the work. A quote from Gareth Knight in The Work of a Modern Occult Fraternity. The involution of man was his descent from the sphere of the spirit, developing bodies of a mental, emotional, and then physical nature until he manifested upon this planet. His evolution is to civilize this planet and to develop mastery of the physical, emotional, and mental planes and relink himself in unity with God once more, thus completing the cycle. He came from God as an inexperienced spark of divine fire and returns to him with all the experience of manifestation as a Lord of humanity. In many systems of thought, the proliferation of forces is seen in sexual terms. The cosmic parents produce entities in male and female pairs, Gnostic syzygies, which in turn produce offspring. Hence, Confucius says, difficulty is experienced as heaven and earth begin their intercourse. That this has an explicit sexual connotation is confirmed by McClatchy. The figure of difficulty represents the hard and the soft beginning to have sexual intercourse and bringing forth with suffering. Thus we see that the correct and incorrect correlation intercourse of dynamic male and magnetic female lines in any I Ching hexagram symbolizes the favorable or life-enhancing or unfavorable or life-negating combinations of thought and feeling within the psyche. Suggestions for meditation. The sexual intercourse of heaven and earth is also described in hexagram number 11, harmony. In terms of these sexual metaphors, what does the term adultery imply in regard to the work? See hexagram number 44, temptation, for further insight on this theme. We'll now turn to our supporting hexagram 39, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. James Dekorne calls it impasse. Other titles might be obstruction, the symbol of difficulty, arresting movement, trouble, obstacles, barrier, halt, halting, limping, afoot, sit tight, don't move. A quote from D.F. Hook, one is surrounded by an underwater reef and should wait for assistance. Judgment, leg. During an impasse, advantage is found in the southwest, disadvantage in the northeast. See the great man. Firm correctness brings good fortune. Wilhelm/Baines. Obstruction, the southwest furthers, the northeast does not further. It furthers one to see the great man. Perseverance brings good fortune. Blowfold, trouble. The west and the south are favorable, but not the east and north. That is to say, if we try to forward our plans by proceeding in either of those directions, we shall get bogged down or lost. It could also mean that we should be driven to unvirtuous conduct. It is advisable to see a great man. We should seek advice from someone of lofty moral stature and profound wisdom. Persistence in a righteous course brings good fortune. Ritzema/Karcher. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of being weak, afflicted, or hampered. It emphasizes that going ahead, even though haltingly, is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to limp. Halting ni, the good direction is where there is no abyss or high mountains, like the southwest, but not the northeast. One should go to the great leader who can work with people in breaking through obstructions. The image. Leg, water on the mountain, the image of impasse. The superior man turns around to examine himself and cultivate his virtue. Wilhelm/Baines, water on the mountain, the image of obstruction. Thus, the superior man turns his attention to himself and molds his character. Blowfold, this hexagram symbolizes water upon a mountain. The superior man cultivates his virtue by bringing about a revolution within himself. Ritzema/Karcher, above mountain possessing stream, limping. A chunsu, or chief son or superior person, uses reversing individuality to renovate actualizing Tao. And actualizing Tao, or actualized Tao, is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, D, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, impasse means difficulty, with the trigram of peril up ahead. It is a wise man who can stop his advance at the first sign of danger. Advantage in the southwest means that the dynamic line has advanced to the central position. In the northeast, however, progress is halted. Seeing the great man ensures progress and success. All of the lines except the first are in their appropriate places, suggesting the firm correctness in which the regions of the kingdom are brought to their natural order. Great indeed is the work to be done during an impasse. Leg. Impasse is the symbol of incompetency in the feet and legs, involving difficulty in walking. Hence it represents a state of the kingdom which makes government an arduous task. The figure teaches how to perform this task under the prevailing circumstances. The judgment requires three things: the attention to place, the presence of the great man, and the observance of firm correctness. According to King Wen's arrangement of the trigrams, the southwest is occupied by the trigram of earth and the northeast by the trigram of mountain. The former is the fertile lowland, the latter the mountain peaks. The former is easily traversed and held, while the latter presents obstacles. Thus, the attention to place becomes a calculation of circumstances, differentiating those that are promising from those that are likely to fail. The great man is the correctly dynamic ruler in the fifth place, with the proper magnetic correlate in line 2. However, favorable position and circumstances and the presence of the great man do not relieve us from the observance of firm correctness. This principle is consistent throughout the I Ching. Zheng Su says, "We see here a steep and difficult mountain, on the top of which is water. Each trigram represents perilousness. There is peril above and below. Hence it shows the difficulties of the state. The application of the symbolism is illustrated by the words of Mencius. When our actions do not realize our desires, we must turn inwards and examine ourselves in every point." Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Dissolve the polarities of an impasse by seeking its most fertile integration. Use your will in harmony with the principles of the work. The superior man seeks his center and refines his commitment. Lines 2 and 5 of this difficult hexagram show those who struggle with hardship. All of the other lines show images of an improper advance followed by a proper return to a former position. Ritzema/Karcher's characterization of the hexagram's overall meaning as an injunction to go ahead, even though haltingly is the adequate way to handle it, the situation, is anomalous and at variance with the general import of this figure. Legg's Confucian commentary is more in keeping with its meaning. It is a wise man who can stop his advance at the first sign of danger. Legg also chooses an excellent paraphrase of the role of the superior man in the image with his quotation from Mencius. When our actions do not realize our desires, we must turn inwards and examine ourselves in every point. In other words, the chances are good that the impasse may be self-created. And when the ego introspects with care, the reasons usually become apparent. It is not unknown at a certain stage of development for the ego, overwhelmed with the enormity of the work, to evade its responsibilities and vainly try to return to the bliss of its former ignorance. At such times, it soon becomes clear that no matter what you attempt, success will be blocked. Where others succeed with ease, it will take you 5 times as much effort just to break even. This impasse is permanent until you resume your responsibility for the work. The following quotation is an allegory of this condition. Quote from Haggai 1, 6-10. Yahweh Sabaoth says this, "Reflect carefully how things have gone for you. You have sown much and harvested little. You eat but never have enough. Drink but never have your fill. Put on clothes but do not feel warm. The wage earner gets his wages only to put them in a purse riddled with holes. The abundance you expected proved to be little. When you brought the harvest in, my breath spoiled it. And why? It is Yahweh Sabaoth who speaks. Because while my house lies in ruins, you are busy with your own, each one of you. In one way or another, the self will attain its intent. To ignore this hard truth is to experience impasse." We will go back and read our changing lines 1 and 3 from our primary hexagram 3, trouble, I believe, is what James Dekorne calls it. They put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. Difficulty is what he calls it. They're the most focused part of the reading, and they take precedence over all other elements. Each of them has their own general context. Changing line 1 has the general context, inklings, just beginning to sense what could be involved or needed. And changing line 3, an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. changing line 1 of hexagram 3 difficulty. Leg. The first line dynamic shows the difficulty its subject has in advancing. It will be advantageous for him to abide correct and firm. Advantageous also to be made a feudal ruler. Wilhelm/Bain's hesitation and hindrance. It furthers one to remain persevering. It furthers one to appoint helpers. Cleary 2. Staying around, it is beneficial to remain correct. It is beneficial to set up lords. In Buddhist terms, to stay around means to be immediately aware of any mental movement and not roll along, following thoughts. This is what is called coming back before going far. Wu. There is a formidable obstruction to advance. It will be advantageous, however, to remain persevering, etc. If the subject can remain firm and correct, he will overcome. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Although there is difficulty in advancing, the mind of the subject of the line is set on doing what is correct. While noble, he humbles himself to the mean and grandly gains the people. Wilhelm/Baines. The aim of the work is nonetheless to carry out what is right. When an eminent man subordinates himself to his inferiors, he wins the hearts of all people. Blofeld. Despite prevailing uncertainty, the way of righteousness must be pursued with firm correctness. Men in high places, by cooperating with those under their care, will thereby win the support of the people. Ritzema/Karcher. Although a stone pillar, purpose moving correctly indeed, using valuing the mean below, the great acquiring the commoners indeed. Cleary 2. Though they stay around, the action of their wills is correct. Because they value the lowly, they win many people. Wu. Although he is under constraint, he has set his goal correctly. Like a noble man serving the common people, he will receive their support. Leg. The first line is energetic and strong, and his place in the trigram of movement disposes him to action. But above him is the trigram of peril, and the lowest line of that, to whom he must look for response and cooperation, is magnetic. Hence arise the ideas of difficulty in advancing, the necessity of caution, and the advantage of being clothed with authority. He is noble, firm, and correct, but his place is below the divided lines, symbols of the weak and lowly. Notes and paraphrases. Sue. At the outset, the man takes stock of the obstacles. He does not force his advance. He perseveres on the right course and acquires the appropriate assistance. He continuously rechecks his bearings as the confusion is gradually resolved. Wing. It seems that you have come across a confusing obstacle at the beginning of your path. The best way to attract the helpers you will need is to maintain a devoted and humble attitude. Do not attempt to boldly push ahead unaided. However, do keep your goal in sight. Editor. The symbolism suggests the following intrapsychic correlations. Advance, the advance of consciousness, comprehension, etc. Feudal ruler, the ego as master of its thoughts and feelings. Humbles himself to the mean. Mean here means lowly. The ego remains firm and correct, maintains his will, but doesn't take on airs. He nurtures his humility. The people, thoughts, feelings, opinions, attitudes, emotions, appetites, etc. A quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest. The optimal stance that the ego can strive for without necessarily hoping that it can ever be accomplished fully, could be described as a continual awareness of the conflicting polarities likely to appear in ever new forms as old ones are resolved, of waiting and seeing, of living things out, weighing various aspects and bringing them into balance, ever ready to work with the materials at hand. James Dekorne breaks changing line 1 down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, There are intimidating obstructions to progress. Remain persevering while seeking assistance. If you subordinate yourself to your situation, you'll gain insight into its nature. Take no major action. And B, a difficult path demands impeccable will and full acceptance of responsibility. And changing line 3. Leg. The third line magnetic shows one following the deer without the guidance of the forester and only finding himself in the midst of the forest. The superior man, acquainted with the secret risks, thinks it better to give up the chase. If he went forward, he would regret it. Wilhelm/Baines. Whoever hunts deer without the forester only loses his way in the forest. The superior man understands the signs of the time and prefers to desist. To go on brings humiliation. Cleary 2. Chasing deer without preparation only goes into the bush. Leaders see that it is better to give up, for to go would bring regret. If you have no accurate knowledge yourself and do not have enlightened teachers or associates and practice blindly, then you will fall into a pit. Wu. Hunting in the forest without the guidance of a ranger will result in roaming aimlessly with a chance of getting lost. The Junzi, or chief son or superior person, senses the risk. It is better to quit than to proceed and regret. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. One pursues the deer without the guidance of the forester in his eagerness to follow the game. The superior man gives up the chase, knowing that if he go forward, he would be reduced to extremity. Wilhelm/Baines. He desires the game, but to go on brings humiliation. It leads to failure. Blofeld. His lack of caution in hunting the deer resulted from his being too set on capturing it. The superior man always desists when to advance would bring disaster. Ritzimo/Karcher. Approaching stag without precaution, adhering to wildfowl indeed. A Chunsu stowing it, going abashment exhausted indeed. Cleary 2. Chasing deer without preparation is following the beasts. To go would bring regret and lead nowhere. Wu. Hunting without a guide is like chasing around the game. To proceed will end in an awkward situation. Leg. The third line is magnetic, not central, and in the place of a dynamic line. These things are all generally unfavorable, but the outcome of the whole hexagram being good, the superior man sees the immediate danger and avoids it. Notes and paraphrases. Su. The man wanders aimlessly without adequate guidance, like a hunter without a forester. The superior man knows when going forward will cause regret. He gives up the senseless chase and avoids eventual disgrace. Wing. You can sense the difficulties that lie ahead on your path. If you nevertheless plunge into the forest of obstacles without an experienced guide, you will surely lose your way. Such egotism and vanity brings unrelenting humiliation. A wiser man will alter his goals here. Editor. Forest symbolism is usually associated with the feminine principle and the unconscious psyche. A deer, being a denizen of the forest, could symbolize the undifferentiated, unassimilated, autonomous force within the situation at hand. As the object of the quest, it represents the answer to a question, a solution to your problem, etc. To complete the metaphor, the forester would be your intuition or inner guide, the self. The message is that you have no insight into the prevailing situation and should stop trying to force a solution. Cease your fruitless speculation and wait for the way to become clear. Quote from M.E. Harding in Psychic Energy. It is only when the human being really knows what he is doing that he can be called self-conscious and responsible. The person who is guided by his ego alone is not self-conscious in this sense, for he is limited in his self-knowledge to the conscious realm only, and beyond this terrain yields himself blindly to the obscure urges and devious impulses of the unconscious. James Dekorne breaks changing line 3 down into one possible succinct definition. Lost in the woods. You don't yet grasp your situation. Never act on what you don't understand. We will now get a randomly card drawn chapter from the Tao Te Ching whilst I try and sum this up. Our primary hexagram 3, difficulty, is the first hexagram that comes after the mother and father hexagrams 1 and 2, or the dynamic and magnetic hexagrams, you could say that, or maybe even yang and then yin. This is like a sprout of a seed trying to push through the earth. And it shows that we're in a state kind of like of ignorance, and the goal is to set up a king or a ruler. The mind being like a king or ruler that is able to govern the whole body, and that we're to start with a good basis, and that we're also in the situation of a new start. It made me think of the parable of the sower with the seed that fell along the side of the road with all the rocks, right? Because hexagram 39, our supporting hexagram, is halting or trouble, and it shows someone going and taking a hike or a trip and having to turn around because of obstacles in their way. And the trigrams are that of mountain beneath water, and water, water, that trigram is danger, solitude, and being confronted by the haunting unknown. And so basically it was boiled down to both of the trigrams are perilous in hexagram 39. And so we're to basically turn around and figure out an easier course that isn't dangerous. So getting back to our primary hexagram with the changing lines 1 and 3. Changing line 1 had to do with things being put together on a good foundation, and that the questioner or the subject of the reading was acting in firm correctness. And so the idea is to put the first things first and to create your foundation correctly when you're starting out. The third hexagram, changing line in our primary hexagram, remembering that our changing lines are the most focused part of our reading, had somebody entering the woods without a guide in order to hunt a deer. And James Dekorne related it to seeking after a certain goal and going into the forest, which he said represents like the feminine principle. And there's all the different complexes that you could associate with the unconscious that are in this forest, and you're just looking for this one thing. But without a guide, it is wise to not advance, to turn around and to give up, because you could be searching for what you're looking for only to be putting yourself in a dangerous situation. So all wrapped together, it's like a seed that has rain that's going to come down on it. The first hexagram were the combination of Zen thunder beneath Kan water, and they talked about rain coming down. So this thing is about to be watered and sprout up. And though we may be in a situation where internally we've set up the mind as a good ruler, keeping in mind the goal of the Jumsu or chief son or superior person or the sage, keeping in mind our and in view that example when starting out a new situation, and hoping that, you know, because of that foundation of first things being set as the principle starting out point, that things will progress, continually adapting with the highest principles in mind, albeit this is just the beginning. And because of the amount of possibilities and mixtures that could come into play, it's too early to really, it's almost like you're swamped with variables. And so in the changing lines, having the firm correctness and the idea of the sage in our minds when starting out, but realizing that we can't just wander out too early or go into the woods seeking the deer without a guide. It's smarter to wait for the right time to act, especially in a situation that's difficult, especially when we're weak and vulnerable, and like the state of a new seedling beginning to grow. Makes me think of last year. We were walking around and seeing how all the trees were fruiting and or blossoming, and it was because we had this short amount of time, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, where it was nice and warm weather, and then it dipped below freezing after that, and it was like all these plants were like, yay! And then all of a sudden got hit with the killing frost. And so it was as though things didn't do as well as they might had they had, you know, the opportunity with the weather to flourish a lot better. So that being said, it is wiser in our situation to hold back maybe a little bit for just springing forward as if we know what to do when we're in a situation where we don't have in view what the self knows. We're maybe cut off a little bit from our intuition and don't sense what is needed. And so in this situation, yeah, to not act is best. And yet what we can do in acting is to do internal work that would be wise and helpful. Chapter 70 of the Tao Te Ching we will read, and chapter 40. My copy is by, or translated by Jia Fu Fang and Jane English. Chapter 70 of the Tao Te Ching. My words are easy to understand and easy to perform, yet no man under heaven knows them or practices them. My words have ancient beginnings. My actions are disciplined. Because men do not understand, they have no knowledge of me. Those that know me are few. Those that abuse me are honored. Therefore the sage wears rough clothing and holds the jewel in his heart. And chapter 40 of the Tao Te Ching. Returning is the motion of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. The 10,000 things are born of being. Being is born of not being.